How's it going, Exile? So today we're looking at my new build, which is going to be a life scaler Gemling Legionnaire. As you can see, by running Xesht, we have a tooltip of 5.5 million spark DPS here. The main difference to the Bloodmage is that this has significantly more movement speed and significantly more life, while it definitely has a lot less damage, even though the tooltip will show you more damage. That's not accurate, because the Bloodmage has most of its damage not being shown in the tooltip. So as you can see, versus Arbiter here, it's a little bit slower in the physical resistance phase of the boss. But as already said, we have more movement speed and we can easily get up to 12k life, which gives us a little bit more hit pool and makes the vulnerability of this build to one-shot significantly lower. So while we are looking at some random map footage here, you can actually see that this build is much faster. We are running at roughly 90% movement speed depending on your setup, with also like an 80% reduced movement speed penalty for casting spells, so we can basically cast while moving without any penalty at all. So as always, a little reminder, like, subscribe and comment if you like my content, it really helps me a lot. And as always, you find the link to the planner and to the PoE and to all the sections of this guide, as well as to all the trade links you need to buy the gear for this build in the description down below. But now let's get into the actual guide, and without further ado, let's start with the skill gems. Looking at the skill gems, just ignore this. This is just really for getting the gem limit. So we start with Sigil of Power in our weapon swap. We can use Sigil of Power to the full extent in this build because we have some little tech I'm going to show in a little bit. But basically we use it with Prolonged Duration, we use it with Magnified Area 2, Cooldown Recovery 2, and Rapid Casting 2. Then for the Spark, this is my mapping setup. So we're sitting at a cozy 1.1 million DPS without Arcane Surge in a mapping setup. So as pretty much in all mapping setups, I play Projectile Acceleration 3, Mobility, Ricochet 3, Zenith 2, and Atalui's Bloodletting. So this is the mapping setup. If you want to switch it to a boss setup, you're basically going to put in Heft, you're basically going to put in Unleash, and you're basically going to put in considered casting. As you can see, it jumps to like 2.5 million. However, in this, we have the tech that we can actually use Sigil of Power. So, and we can also utilize Lightning Flame Wall. So if you would want to go in a boss and setup, the rotation would be as followed. You put your Sigil of Power, then you use 2 times your curse, then spam your mana flask, whatever curse it may be, right? So now you can see my Sigil is fully stacked up, and we also got like a 30-second Arcane Surge now. You know, you can, whenever you want, put like these 2 lightning orbs here and wait for them to expire. It takes like 4 seconds. Now you can put a Lightning Flame Wall, and now you can spam. And as you can see, like our DPS goes like up to, you know, 5 million, depending on the support gems. You can get up to like 5.5 million. But this is kind of what you're looking at. And if you have dealt like a crit recently, it's going to get a little bit more. Also, we have like a decent shock in this build. So this is kind of the bossing damage you can expect of this. And this is kind of the tech you can use to, you know, power up your Sigil of Power on a boss. This can be useful if you're not at such a high damage tooltip yet. So if you're just doing half the damage or 1/3 of the damage, it really helps powering up your Sigil of Power to the fullest. And the Lightning Flame Wall also helps a little bit here. And in this setup, it's pretty easy to achieve actually. Then talking of Flame Wall, so if you really want to use it on bosses, you can get a Corrupted one with level 21. It's pretty cheap. It's like, you know, not even a Divine. And I use it with Prolonged Duration 2. I use it with Fortress 2. I use it with Life Tap. And I use it with Fire Mastery. Then Orb of Storms, again, just for the bossing setup, I use it with Compressed Duration 2, Overabundance 2, Unleash. So it basically casts 2 at the same time. So I only have to press it once and it's just creating 3. Actually, it's creating 3, but, you know, only 2 will stay because we have a limit of 2. But, and then we use Harmonic Remnants for, you know, whatever reason it can spawn a third one. We don't even need it, but, and Life Tap, so we can cast it. And then I have 3 curses in here. You can kind of use whatever you want. You don't really have to use one at all, but mainly just for completion. If you want to use your Sigil of Power, you kind of need one of these curses to spend your mana, and you cannot really do it on the other spells. I'm not going to explain why, but you want to have basically the curses, and the curses also have the Arcane Surge, which lasts very long in our weapon set 2, because our weapon set 2 is fully duration focused in this build. So you can use Temporal Chains, Enfeeble, or Vulnerability. Vulnerability does basically nothing, since the armor scaling works that way that, you know, it maybe gives you like 5% more damage, if at all. Enfeeble, well, if you're really like suffering, for example, in Simulacrum on taking damage, you can use Enfeeble, or you can use Temporal Chains, also pretty nice in Simulacrum. That also, like, if you need a little bit longer for the bosses, this will, you know, make the bosses cast their shit a little bit slower. But overall, you don't really need these curses at all. I have them all with the same setup: Prolonged Duration 2, Heightened Curse, Burst Ground, Arcane Surge, and Magnified Area. And again, the Arcane Surge is for our charge of tech. So if we use Sigil of Power, and now we curse, curse like twice. As you can see, we have now this like 30-second Arcane Surge. It's also useful if you want to see like a real DPS in the hideout, because usually if you just have Arcane Surge on crit, you cannot really see it in the hideout. So this is like a little bit of a bonus tech. And then here's just 2 random skills at the bottom, which I just smashed with like extra green and red support gems. That's really solely to reach the Gem Enthusiast bonus here. So we need 10 green and 10 red support gems to get 5% increased maximum life and 5% movement speed. So completely ignore these skills. They are really just for carrying your support gems. Looking at the items, these are fairly similar to all other builds like this. So we kind of have our key components, which is Veil of the Night here. Try to get one with 57% increased maximum life. They're usually fairly cheap. It's nice if the attribute roll is high, but don't focus on it. Don't focus on double sockets. These are going to be extremely expensive. Then for Kaom's Heart, again, you don't need a good one. These are ridiculously expensive. You can just get a 2-socket one with 1500 life. It's going to be completely alright. If you want to get a bigger one, you can get a bigger one, but definitely not a requirement. What is a requirement? Well, it's not really a requirement, but since we're not playing Bloodmage, we have a little bit lower base crit chance. So I would recommend to get a Respite with a 6% increased crit. The 7% life cost is nice because it gives you extra damage. The spell damage doesn't really have to roll higher. So I would also recommend to just get it with 1 socket. A second socket is extremely expensive and it's really going to just give you 40% more maximum life. So 40 more maximum life. And so the priority would be here 6% crit, then 7% cost. And then, if you want to shoot over like 10% increased damage, you can do that. But it's absolutely not a requirement. Then for Amulet, this is still the same Amulet we always had. I have a Rarity Amulet with maximum life, percent maximum life, plus level of all spell skills, crit bonus, and cast speed. Crit chance would be a little bit nicer on this. I actually don't even know if amulets can roll crit chance, but I think they can. So in this build, you kind of need more crit chance, but I still have this amulet. This is like completely fine for this build. Then for the ring, we have like a little bit of a different slot here. You can opt for a more magic find focused one, but I just wanted to put this build together to have like a better amulet. So ideally, you want to have a higher life roll. I have a good strengths and all attributes roll here, so that's why I rolled attributes. But you can also have like a just a strengths roll and a double magic find, for example. And then you can, improve the life roll, for example. That's definitely a possibility. I just happened to find this. So basically, we're just focusing on getting as much strength and life as possible on our gear. For our second ring, I usually use Kalandra's Touch to just mirror this. Then for boots, it's really just, if you cannot afford these, don't sweat it. You can also get like a 2-socket one. I happen to buy like, 2-socket ones and corrupt them. Usually I take like 2 or 3 tries. So I have 20% increased movement speed. If you don't have the cash for this, don't sweat it. You can just get the reduced movement speed penalties. These work just fine. And you can spec a little bit more movement speed in the tree then. But as for the stats, it completely doesn't matter what armor type it has, right? Only you have to be able to equip it. And then you want to have as much maximum life and strength as possible. You want to have a rarity roll and 30% movement speed, and of course the 100% increased effect of socketed items. Same goes for the gloves. Ideally, obviously, you want to have a 3-socket glove, but again, go for 100% increased effect of socketed items, strength, maximum life, and armor type, again, completely doesn't matter. Socket in the Soul Core, which is the Kurgal's Gaze here, for 80% increased effect of Arcane Surge. A lot of people like to slot in cast speed here. I actually just slot in the extra life because I feel like I'm already saturated on cast speed at this point. Then we have Ingenuity. Really, this is just for more rarity from your ring slots, a little bit more cast speed. You can obviously run a Headhunter if you want. It fits this build very well because it has very high stats. But if you want to go for like a little bit more item rarity, you can absolutely get Ingenuity. If you don't want to get any of these belts, just get a belt with as much life, strength as possible. You can pick up some Chaos Res if you feel the need to. I don't really do that. And then last but not least, our wand. So this is still my old wand. Focus on +2 level of all spell skills socketed in. This is the most important. Spell damage is nice. The gain, extra fire, extra lightning, extra cold are not strong in this build. Each of these gain stats is less than 3% more damage. So spell damage is ideal here. But don't sweat these prefixes at all. And you don't want to have a critical strike damage bonus here, so you definitely want to have the high crit chance in this build, because you're not at 100% crit chance, so I would have to get another one, but, you know, I'm just showcasing this build now. So nice stats would be definitely cast speed, but if you cannot get cast speed, you can also get crit bonus, but you definitely want to have the +5 skills. +2 skills socketed in, it's your biggest damage bonus. And if you can get a high crit chance on this round, like 70%, you know, 65% plus or whatever, is going to be very nice. So as for the charms, if you have the money, Rite of Passage is the absolute strongest charm which exists. If you don't have the money, just get a regular golden charm. Then I have a random sawing charm, really, just to not get frozen. And then we're gonna have the Fall of the Axe here, which is also nice. But if you don't have it, you can just use, for example, like any regular stun charm. And as for a flask, you want to have a flask with increased amount recovered and increased charges gained, ideally. But increased amount is the most important here, because it's just gonna make your ramp up a little bit faster, right? So if you starting, you have to ramp up. As you can see, it takes a little while. So what you can do is you can spam your flask to just make it a little bit faster. And obviously in this build, you can also, like, you know, get your Arcane Surge from your curse. And that's going to make it, like, much faster. But in general, helping with the Flask and the Arcane Surge makes your ramp up just a little bit faster. So I highly recommend get a Flask with as many charges as possible. And in your Mana Flask, if you want to do the tech with the Mana, with the, you know, Sigil we showcased earlier in the skills, get one with, you know, reduced charges per use, and get one with 100% increased Mana recovered and, you know, 15% Mana recovered from life when used. These really help with the ramp up and to get your Sigil of Power stages faster and get your long Arcane Surge faster. As for the passive tree, we obviously go for the +2 level for all skills with an intelligence requirement. This is just an insane damage boost, especially if we scale our life cost, which we're doing in this build. Also, the quality on skills helps. It's not amazing, but, you know, for Spark, it just makes it a little bit faster and stuff. For the curses, makes it a little bit more powerful. So in general, it's a decent stat, but, you know, we are really just going here for the +2 skills. And then we have the attribute stacking. So if we're still, like, you know, trying to get faster, like if you don't have, like, such speedy gear, you can, you know, skip this and get the gem studded here. If you have enough green support gems, this basically gives you 40% less movement speed penalty from using skills while moving. This is insanely strong if you get this, and if you do not really want to scale this for the fullest yet, this will make you move so much faster. So I recommend getting this if you're, like, you know, just starting, you know, you're not really up to speed yet and you're just leveling or whatever you're doing. This is really, really strong if you have green support gems. But yeah, if you want to go for the high-end version, we basically go for the increased attributes, and then we basically go for the enhanced effectiveness here. This gives us 20% less attributes, but it gives us an insane amount of life from all our strengths, because you can see we have 437 strengths after this. So before this, we have, like, you know, 600 strengths or something like that. So this really, really, really gives us a lot of strengths and life. As for the skill tree, this is a very, very movement speed focused tree. If you want to make more damage because, you know, you're just not there yet or whatever, or you're just bossing, you can definitely spec out of movement speed and get some more crit nodes. But for me right now, this is very, very movement speed focused. So we pick up the 8% movement speed here. We pass down to just get the movement speed here. Then we slot our From Nothing with the Valpact here. So this is 7 divines. If you don't want this, you can also just pass here. It's just, you know, 5 or 6 extra nodes. So it's actually not a requirement to have this. You can definitely also pass here and then pick something else on the jewel slot. But, you know, for this high-end build, I'm basically using this to save the nodes. And we're going to pick up, like, the reduced you know, the ignore of armor penalties for movement speed, and we're going to pick up these 7% movement speed here. Then we're just going to pass over here. We're going to pick up these freedom of movement here for reduced movement speed penalty. It's really, really nice. We pick up cooked here, and this is a node. If I had some more skill points, I can pick up another 3% movement speed here. Then we have the, you know, skill speed and movement speed here. We have the 4% movement speed here. This 1% would also be for, you know, if I had some more skill points. Then we move over here. We pick up this reduced movement speed penalty. This is a really nice cluster. It gives you 20% in reduced movement speed penalty. I feel like it's very strong for just 3 points. Then I pick up the double crit here because, again, in this build, we need crit chance. We cannot just focus on crit damage solely. Then we pick up Chakra of Life. It's more life and more life recovery rate. So this cluster is very, very strong. Don't skip this. It's a very high priority to keep like your life regeneration going and make your ramp up slower and stuff like that. Then again, we pick up, crit bonus with Throat Seeker. Then we have this from nothing here with Controlled Metamorphosis. Pretty sure you saw this tech before, which allows us basically to pick up the Harmonic Generator, which gives us 40% more magnitude on shock and essentially 25% more critical hit chance against any enemy who lasts longer than one hit. We pick up the Kite Runner here for projectile speed, damage, and movement speed, obviously. We pick up, Spaghettification here for attributes and movement speed. And we can pick up for the Juggler here for crit bonus and intelligence. And then we just pass over here at the top. We're getting the Undying Hate. So if you can get one with 8 strengths, these are actually not so expensive. You can actually also get like one with like 7 strengths. It gives like a little bit of a bonus. Obviously, don't forget to pick up the Sacrifice of Blood. This is what makes this build work, right? So we only use this jewel to transform a keystone into Sacrifice of Blood and then pick this up. And we pass over here, get like a little bit of more int because we have to basically use the int just for our wand requirement. And then we go over here, pick up all the Arcane Search stuff here. These are important, right? This makes you get Arcane Search on crit. And these life scaler nodes, I would not recommend skipping them because increased life cost of skills scales your damage quite a bit. And these also have like an increased life regeneration roll, which is also fairly high. So I would highly recommend not to skip these. As for the weapon sets, I kind of have random stuff in weapon set 1, to be honest. I have like this in weapon set 1, and mostly like the crit stuff here in weapon set 1, and some movement speed also in weapon set 1. And then we have weapon set 2, which is basically duration focused, right? So we pick up these skill effect duration cluster here. We pick up these skill effect duration node here, which is 16%. Then we pick up this skill effect duration node here, which is 10%. And last but not least, we pick up another, 32 skill effect duration here. So that basically gives us like a Sigil of Power and the Flame Wall and the Curse, which lasts like well over 30 seconds. So if you run whatever boss, Simulacrum, Ritual, whatever you're going to do, these are going to be there until the very end. And then last but not least, let's look at the jewels here. So we run basically double crit jewels. You don't have to get like a crazy one with cast speed. Basically, what you want to have is really just double crit. All the other stats do not really matter so much. So just focus on crit chance, crit damage bonus on your blue jewels here. So as you can see, this crit chance, crit damage bonus. Nice if you can get an implicit, but not a requirement. And then we have basically our Grand Spectrums, right? If you cannot afford the Grand Spectrums, don't sweat it. Yes, these give you like a significant amount of extra life, but if you don't get them, just get more double crit jewels. And then we just have the From Nothing, which we already showed here. And as an Anoint, we are using the Gem Enthusiast here. This node is just way too powerful to skip. It gives you 5% increased maximum life and 5% movement speed. So this is just crazy strong whatsoever. So a lot of people ask me to include the Atlas passive tree, so I have it here. So I pretty much run this Atlas passive tree all the time, and it's pretty similar to what most people are playing. I just really only have like one tiny difference, that I pick up this extra 50% duration and effect of shrines, which a lot of people seem to not pick up. But I think it's a good note here to pick up this little shrine stuff here. You can remove basically these 4 nodes to pick up a little bit of extra waystone effect, but I feel like it's not necessary. I really like this setup here the most. So what we're doing here is basically we're just picking up all rarity, all quantity, and all explicit modifier nodes. So this is really just rarity. Explicit modifiers. This one gives a lot of explicit modifiers for the waystones here. Then we have this one, 25% more effect on prefixes or suffixes. These are all the tablet nodes here, which buff the tablets. So here's some more increased of explicit modifiers here. This is explicit modifiers. Rare monsters and duplicated rare monsters here, and really just picking up these, extra chance for more shrines and the increased duration and effect of, buffs granted by shrines. So by now, I'm actually so fast that I would probably not use this anymore. You can use this, but it's not a requirement. You could also use like the, catalyst stack node here, or you could use the, more density but 30% faster. I think this makes it sometimes a little fast to get the full benefit. The breach splinter clasp hands thing, I think it's not a requirement, but I think this would be a better setup in general. Then as for you know, as for Ritual, I really don't play Ritual a lot because I usually choose my maps with Abysses. But, you know, I would just get, you know, always have 4, spawn monsters faster, you know, this just gives you more tribute, basically, and the rerolling to be cheaper. And then for Simulacrum, you know, it doesn't really matter all that much, to be honest, what you have here. You just want to have, like, the, you know, more fracturing mirrors. If you really still picking up Simulacrum splinters, I don't even pick them up anymore. But this is pretty much my Simulacrum tree. My boss tree, you can get this corruption thing, but I feel like it's not really necessary. So I mainly just go for shrines, because shrines are pretty much the best thing you can get, if in my mind. Like, if you're farming essences or stuff like that, you can obviously do this, but this is usually the setup I do here in my boss tree. Expedition, I basically go for, like, the, you know, one explosive thingy, and, you know, everything else is random. So this is kind of the tree I'm running. But most importantly is this. Feel like these boss mechanics are not even so important this league, since most of the loot you're getting is going to come from Abyss anyway. And this is basically juicing your waystones to the fullest, so you can take full advantage of Abyss. So how do you use my trade links? For all my guides, I post all the trade links for all the gear I'm using in the planner and also in the video description. So for example, if you're looking at the planner, you will have a section which is called How It Works. Unfortunately, it's named like that. And the section will always have the trade links. So you can see there's like a bunch of trade links here which allow you to buy pretty much every single item. But there's a little catch to this, because I use weighted sums, so you have to understand how it works. So basically, there's 2 kinds of trade links I use. There's some which are unique trade links where you just buy the cheapest one. For example, let's look at this Veil of the Night here. So this is like a unique item, and it is basically just the cheapest one. So it has a certain requirement, right? And you just buy the cheapest one. This is the first variant. The other variant, for most rare items, for example, I use weighting. So let's look at weighting. For example, let's check out this wand here. So if you click on this trade link, it's going to show you garbage, basically. I mean, you know, this is not garbage, but this is not what we're looking for. So these always have a weighting. So you will have a sum here. So you want to click on this sum. And now you're going to see the best wand matching the filter. So, however, this obviously comes with the cost. They go up to like 50 divines, right? So let's say you only have a budget of 10 divines for a wand. So right now 10 divines would be like an exalted orb equivalent, for example, of 4,000, right? So now if you do this, you will find all the wands which fit your budget. So as you can see, for your budget of, you know, 5 exalts, there's only 2 wands. But let's say your budget is like 20 exalts, then you will see a good amount of wands. And basically what you do is you get the wand with the highest weighted sum. So as you can see, for example, for this query here with the critical strike chance and whatever, the cheapest wand costs 5, and actually everything else is more expensive but worse. So this is basically how my trade links work. There's always going to be a weighted sum, and there's always going to be a budget. So you want to adjust the budget to your needs. So for example, if you have unlimited budget, right? Let's just look at all the wands, and now as you can see, this goes up to a sum of 612. But obviously these are like 300 divines, but this is the strongest wands you can basically get. But if you only have a budget of, you know, whatever, 20,000, then you will see this is the strongest one for 20,000. And it's not much weaker than the one for 150, to be honest. But this is how weighted sum trading works. So I will always have the weighted sum trading trade links in my description, in the video description, in the planner. So make sure to use these to don't overpay for bad items.